In our today's lecture, we will talk about the structures associated with the muscles, and by the end of this lecture, you will learn about the structure of the tendon um, and ligaments, and also the tendon synovial sheaths and bursa. So, starting with the tendon, before going into the details, we will discuss this diagram, which is showing uh, the structure of the tendon. You can see the various layers that are endotendon, epitendon, and paratendon, and you can also see the various components that are primary fiber bundle, secondary fiber bundle, and tertiary fiber bundle. We will discuss about them. So if we talk about the components first, by definition we know that tendon is a structure that connects the muscle to the bone, and this is a type of fiber areolar tissue, and that means this is a type of connective tissue that contains collagen fibers, and it helps holding the organs in place. The first structure, which is the primary fiber bundle, is basically the subfascicle structure. That means the various collagen molecules have joined or aggregated to form the collagen fibril, and these collagen fibril then aggregated to form the collagen fiber, and these collagen fiber basically have grouped to form the fascicles, and these fascicles you can see are parallel along the long axis of the tendons. So these are we can call them as the primary, secondary, and tertiary fiber bundle. Then we will talk about the different layers of the tendons: para, which is the outermost covering, epitendon, and the endotendon. The endotendon basically is a layer at the surface of the tendon that basically is formed of fibroareolar tissue, and it is condensed into a thin fibroelastic sheet. The endotendon is the layer which wraps around the collagen fibers, and it contains the blood vessels, nerves, and the lymphatics. Epitendon also contains the blood vessels, but the endotendon is the main layer, and the tendon cells also release their waste products in this layer. Now we will study it in detail. So they are tough whitish cords or straps varying in length and strength and thickness. Why these are whites? Because of their less vascularity, and also they contain the collagen. That's why they appear whitish and are almost inextensible. They comprise numerous parallel fascicles, bundles of the collagen fibers that we just saw, and tendon cells surrounded by the fibroareolar tissue, which helps to bind them together. This fibroareolar tissue is called the interfascicular tissue or endotendon. That we studied is composed of the fibroareolar tissue, that is a type of connective tissue which helps to bind them together. At the surface of the tendon, the fibroareolar tissue is condensed into a thin fibroelastic sheet called the epitendon. The point where a tendon leaves the muscle, the connective tissue covering of the muscle and the tendon are continuous. At the point of attachment to the bone, the various components of tendon are attached to the bone in following ways. So where the tendon leaves the muscle at its distal end, their covering will be continuous with each other, but when the tendon attaches the muscle with the bone, it attaches in various components with the bone, and the first component is the endotendon. As we saw that endotendon was the innermost layer, so it will blend with the periosteum of the bone, and the next component is the collagen fiber component. Collagen fiber components pass through the cortical bone as perforating fibers. Cortical bone is that part of the bone which is the outer covering of the bone and is known as the protective covering. Tendons show limited elasticity and viscosity. Their tensile strength is half that of steel, which is very much higher for routine functions. A tendon having 1 centimeter square area will support about 1000 kg. So tendons not only allows a limited movement or helps in bending around the joints, but it is because it is inextensible, so it also is responsible for the weight bearing. Blood supply, it is derived from number of longitudinally running small arterioles, so it gets its supply from the small arterioles which are continued down from the perimysium. Perimysium is the outer layer of the muscle which wraps around the fascicles of the muscles, and they continue down from the perimysium and course for the most part in the interfascicular grooves of the tendons. These little vessels communicate freely with one another, and each is accompanied by 2 vena comitants, which means there will be 2 veins surrounding by the one artery, and there are going to be 4 lymph vessels. The density of vascular network is low in tendons, so they look whitish cords. Metabolic turnover is low in tendons, but it is increased in response to injury or infection. Repair is only due to the proliferation of tendon cells associated with the collagen fibers. That's the reason that the tendons are cost effective in repair. Nerve supply is through the efferent receptors that are known as the nerve endings of the tendons, but the vasomotor fibers are not clearly defined. Vasomotor fibers are basically the part of autonomic nervous system, and they are responsible for the vasodilatation and vasoconstrictions of the vessel walls. Their function is to connect the muscles with the bones and cartilages, and due to their slight flexibility they can bend around the bones and reticula, and in this manner help in the movement. The next structure is synovial bursa, and we have previously discussed about it, and we know that this is a sac which contains the synovial fluid and prevents friction in the joint movement. So these are sac-like structures lined by synovial membrane and contain synovial fluid. They develop at those places where friction is liable to occur during the sliding of the tendons. Most of the bursa develop during the fetal life, and these can be seen at the 2 sides. The point where a tendon twists around a bone, for example patella tendon, slides over the knee joint. Patella is a bone which is known as the kneecap, and you can feel it in your interior aspect of the knee joint, and the patella tendon is the one that develops during the fetal life. Subcutaneous bony point which is subjected to pressure, for example tibial tuberosity during the prayer, and tibial tuberosity is the part of the tibia that comes in contact with the floor during the prayer. So the bursa develops during the fetal development, which is the subcutaneous bursa. The other types are adventitious bursa. They are not present at birth and develop in response to unusual pressure or muscular activity, for example at the elbow joint due to the writing, and at the buttocks in hand weavers. Hand weavers basically are those workers that make hand woven shawls or scarves, and due to the sitting they can develop the adventitious bursa. Subtendinous synovial bursa. These are those bursa which intervene between the tendon and bone. The tendon of the popliteus and the lateral condyle of the femur, which is the distal part of the femur. Tendon and ligament, for example bursa between the fibular collateral ligament, which is the ligament around the knee joint, and tendon of the biceps femoris, which is the muscle of your thigh. Bursa between the tendons of sartorius, gracilis and semitendinosus, and tibial collateral ligament. Tendon and tendons. Bursa between the tendons of semimembranosus and semitendinosus. The third type is submuscular synovial bursa. These are those bursa which are present between the tendons and muscles. For example, bursa between the tendon of biceps brachii and deltoid muscles. So these are the submuscular synovial bursa that can be found between the two muscle tendons, and we will see this in our next slide. Subfacial synovial bursa. This basically lies beneath the epineurotic sheath. For example, bursa over the upper surface of the acromion, which is the process of scapula. Subcutaneous synovial bursa. These are those bursa which are present between a bony prominence and subcutaneous tissue or skin. For example, the subcutaneous prepatellar bursa and the infrapatellar bursa, the one which lies beneath or inferior to the patella. So these are the various bursas. You can see the suprapatellar bursa. You can also appreciate the subcutaneous prepatellar bursa, which is a type of subcutaneous bursa. You can also see the bursa between the ligament and the bone, and the muscle, which is between the bicep femoris and the fibril collateral ligament. You can also appreciate the bursa between the muscle and bone, which is between the popliteus muscle and the distal the lateral condyle of the femur, which is the distal part of the femur bone. In the next image, which is the second image, you can also see the ligament between the two muscle tendons, semimembranosus and semitendinosus. And you can also see the subacromion bursa. So these are the various types of bursa. Tendon synovial sheaths. These are defined as the coverings of tendons at certain sites and consist of two concentric layers of the synovial membrane. We have discussed about the synovial sheath previously, and we have seen its structures and its various layers as well. These are defined as the coverings of tendons at certain sites and consist of two concentric layers of the synovial membrane with their smooth surfaces facing one another and separated by an interval containing the synovial fluid. And these two layers are called visceral and parietal layers, and between these two layers will flow the synovial fluid. Site can be the point where a tendon passes under a ligamentous bend. For example, tendon of long head of the biceps passing under the intertubercular ligament. The site where the tendon passes through the osteofibrous canal, flexor tendons of the palm. We will see this example in our next slide. Construction and structure. The synovial sheath is composed of two layers, which we already know. The one is the inner or visceral layer, and it is loosely attached to the tendon, and the other one is the outer or parietal layer. It intervenes between the visceral layer and surrounding structures and lies in the osteofibrous canal or tunnel. The visceral and the parietal layers are connected by a long reflection of the synovial membrane called the mesotendon. We saw this as well, where the blood vessels and nerves run, and there was an adaptation that we studied, which is called venicular tendinum. So if you look at the left sided image, you can see the anatomy of a tendon sheath. You can see the bone, which is an underlying structure, and then you can see the mesotendon where the blood vessel and nerve vessels run. You can see the two layers of the tendon sheath. The one which is outermost is the parietal, and the inner one is called the visceral layer, which is attached to the tendon. And between these two layers, you can see the synovial fluid. On the right side, there is an example of the tendon sheath of the flexor tendons of the digits. uh, you can appreciate the flexor tendon sheets in the fingers and the thumb. Rafts are basically a linear fibrous band formed by the interdigitation of the short tendinous ends of the fibers of flat muscle sheets. It can elongate passively by separation of its attached end. बेसिकली होता क्या है इसके अंदर कि जहाँ पर आपके पास लॉन्ग मसल्स शीट्स हैं वहाँ पर मसल फाइबर्स इंटरडिजिटेट कर जाते हैं एंड दे फॉर्म अ लॉन्गिट्यूडनल लाइन. Example include the pterygomandibular ref, and it is formed by interdigitation of two muscles. The one is buccinator and other one is superior constrictor muscle. And the length of this ref varies with the position of the mandible, because the mandible is the only movable bone in your skull. Mylohyoid ref, it is formed by the interdigitation of two mylohyoid muscles. Pharyngeal ref, it belongs to the pharyngeal constrictors. What does it mean? It means that the pharyngeal constrictor muscles, those muscles that causes the constriction of pharynx, and they form the pharyngeal ref. So the pharyngeal ref basically gives attachment, origin or insertion to the various pharyngeal constrictor muscles. Anococcygeal ref, it is the ref of levator ani muscle, which was taking part in the formation of the pelvic floor. Linea alba, it is formed by the interdigitation of the interior abdominal wall muscles, and the one example is the rectus abdominal muscle, which forms the linea alba. These are the rafts. You can see on the left side the pterygomandibular ref, which is formed by the buccinator muscle, and you can see the next one is the mylohyoid ref, and you can see the two mylohyoid forming the mylohyoid ref. The next one is the pharyngeal ref, that is formed by the pharyngeal constrictor muscles. The last one is the linea alba, which is highlighted with green color. This is a longitudinal line, and you can see that this line or linea alba is formed due to the interdigitation of the rectus muscle. The last structure is ligament, and by definition ligaments connect the adjacent bones of a joint, and they are practically inelastic and unstretchable and help in stability of joints. By classification, according to the composition, that is main connective tissue fiber content, they can be white fibrous tissue ligaments. Most of the ligaments of the body are composed of white fibrous tissue. They show following properties: they are inelastic and unstretchable. They are usually not subjected to prolonged strain except the sacroiliac ligaments and intervertebral discs, which are never free from strain of the whole of the body except in the recumbency, which is bending. Ligamentum flavum, they show the following properties: they are yellow in color, elastic and stretchable. Examples include the ligamentum flava between the lamina of the vertebra and the capsular ligaments, so joints of the auditory ossicles. The next is according to the relation with the articular capsules of the joint. They can be extra capsular, meaning that lying outside the capsule of the joint, and they can be intracapsular, meaning that lying under the capsule of the joint. Extracapsular are those that lie outside the joint capsule, for example iliofemoral ligament of the hip joint, and the intracapsular ligaments, they lie within the joint capsule, for example cruciate ligaments of the knee joint, which we saw in the previous slide. We saw the fibular collateral ligament. They play a role in stability of the joint. This is the function, and due to their rich nerve supply, they play an important role in the reflex activity, which further improves the stabilizing Okay, so these are the various examples. You can see the ligamentum flavum, which is between the lamina of the vertebrae, and these are unstretchable and yellow in color. Sorry, stretchable and yellow in color. And the next example is the extracapsular ligament, which is the iliofemoral ligament, which lies outside the hip joint. So that's all for today. If you have any question regarding this topic, you can ask. Thank you so much.